How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video on the channel. In this video, I want to particularly discuss some updates regarding one of the products that I have had for sale on my Etsy store, which is a 3D printed spacer kit for the C5 Corvette. Over the past few months, I had to deactivate that listing and stop fulfilling orders for that for a reason I'll talk about briefly in a second. But I have some big updates for those products. They're back up for sale, and so I wanted to take some time in this video to discuss those updates and some other plans moving forward regarding 3D printing and my Corvette project as well. So a quick little summary for those that are new to the channel. I am a big car enthusiast and I have a C5 Corvette project car that I've been working on rebuilding, upgrading, and modifying over the past 5 years. And on top of that, I'm also a huge enthusiast and have a huge passion for 3D printing, and I have my own little farm of 3D printers in my garage here that I use to design and build parts that help support the rebuild process of my C5 Corvette, of fixing it and also upgrading and modifying it to my liking. Certain parts that I design and 3D print to help support the rebuild and upgrade process for my C5 Corvette, I intend to put on my Etsy store to sell to other people that have Corvettes, and opening it up to other car platforms as well in the future. But since my personal project car is a C5 Corvette, that's what most of the parts are going to be for right now. Now, like I said, I have an Etsy store where I intend to sell all of these products, and currently I've had really just one product, which is a 3D printed inner fender spacer kit for the C5 Corvette. It's a very niche item that not many people need, but when people do need it, it's really the only one available. So it's kind of an interesting place that I can fulfill for people performing the same type of repair that I had to do on my Corvette when I had to replace the bonded on inner fender, or wheelhouse as they call it, on this car. Now, for about the past 4 months, that listing has been deactivated on my Etsy store. In the later part of last year, my family grew by 1, so I had to take some time away from printing and fulfilling orders to be with my family and spend some much needed quality time, as a new one to the family is a very time involved process, but it's all good and all worth it in the end, and it's been a lot of fun. But things are a little bit more stable now, so I can get back into the groove of printing parts and fulfilling orders. So I'm happy to say that that listing is back up for sale for that inner fender spacer kit for the C5 Corvette. On top of taking the listing down to spend some personal time away with my family, I also wanted to take that time to update and modify the material that I use to make this spacer kit, because the one I was using previously didn't really work that great. So I wanted to spend some time researching and tuning a new material to print this spacer kit with. Now, all of the legacy spacer kits, as I'm calling them, I made from a material called PETG. Now, that material is most commonly known for its use in the single-use food packaging industry, such as like single-use water bottles or Coke bottles or things like that. There's just a slight modification to the polymer that they changed for the polymer that is used really with 3D printing to make it flow easier and print easier. However, I still wasn't the biggest fan of that material. While it is still a really good material, and when you do get good printed parts off the printer, the materials are very robust. They hold up to the sun and the elements well. I've had a PETG part on my Tundra for over 3 years now, and it hasn't degraded at all, maybe some slight color fade. So the material is great once you get the part actually printed, but actually printing the part is very difficult. PETG, not trying to get into a rabbit hole here, but it's very stringy, sticky. It's just not a really easy material to print with. It clogs the 3D printing nozzle a lot. And there are some alternative materials now available that I discussed in my previous video about getting serious about 3D printing car parts that I will be using to make these spacer kits moving forward. That material is called ASA. It's basically the nicer cousin to the common commodity plastic of ABS that most people know and love in the housing industry for the black kind of sewage and drainage pipe that you see in like Home Depot and stores like that. But ASA is like the nicer cousin to ABS. They've modified the polymer in different ways to make it more easily printable, more UV resistant, and not as brittle and prone to cracking. So all of those things played into to the factor of me wanting to adjust the spacer kit to print with that material, and I've been printing some test spacer kits so far and they've come out great. It prints so much easier than PETG, so that'll just allow me to get these spacer kits printed and fulfilled that much easier, instead of having to print one, see if they come out well, and then print another, and then mix and match the good ones from the not good ones from different builds. This material, this ASA material, just prints so much easier, so it'll be way easier on my end to fulfill orders and get those out in a timely manner. I know some people have been messaging me on Instagram and commenting on some YouTube videos about where those spacer kits are because they need them for their Corvette rebuild project. I'm really happy that people are reaching out because it shows that there's a demand for this very niche little item that I built when I was repairing my car. So I'm happy to say that those are back up for sale on my Etsy store. The listing is live. I will have a link in the description, a link in the pinned comment for this video. So if you're in need of this spacer kit to help repair the inner fender for your C5 Corvette, they are up for sale now and ready to ship. I've got a few printed already, so they should be ready to go as soon as you, or within a few days, let's say, as you click order. Now, I believe I started selling this spacer kit in the later part of 2021 because in like kind of springtime of 2021 was when I was performing this repair on my car. So then after I proved out the repair and made sure the spacing that I set on the parts that I made was correct, that's when I started selling it. And over the past few years, it's been pretty cool. I've shipped and sold some of these C5 Corvette spacer kits to some of the most interesting areas around the world that I've never thought that I've ever shipped anything to, in particular apart for a American C5 Corvette. I've shipped parts to the Canary Islands, to Iceland, to Germany, and a bunch of other places. So if you guys have purchased a spacer kit in the past and you're watching this video, thank you so much for your support. It's really cool to see the reach of these parts and to think that my little 3D printers here are helping support people around the world in their car projects. When you buy this spacer kit, it comes with a full instruction guide that shows you where to put the spacers, how to glue them, my recommendations for fitting the new fender, test fitting it, mock fitting it, making sure your panel gaps look good, and then the recommended process for permanently bonding the fender to the car, because for those that don't know, these inner fenders are actually bonded to the chassis of the C5 Corvette. They are not bolted. It's just a very weird thing that GM does, but I guess now more car makers nowadays, like McLaren and like the high-end car makers, are using panel bond versus traditional like rivets and fasteners and things like that. Now in that instruction kit, I did preface that I had to only replace the driver's side inner fender on my car. I did not have to replace the passenger side inner fender. I imagine this car is pretty symmetrical down the center line of the car, so I think that the kit should be interchangeable between driver and passenger side. I've had probably over the past 2-3 years, I've had probably 3 people buy this and ask if it's used for the passenger side as well, and I've told them the same thing I just said to you guys in this video, and I haven't heard any feedback back from them as far as it not fitting up well. So imagine, because the car is pretty symmetrical and I've seen both of the inner fenders on the driver and passenger side, they look very similar, so I imagine that the two sides should be pretty even when it comes to the offset for the gap of the inner fender off of the frame rails. So I'm excited to share with you guys that the spacer kits are back up for sale on my Etsy store out of this newer material that is just going to be so much more robust and easier to print with. I'm really excited to be using it. I've been using it for the past few weeks to print a bunch of different test parts and some initial runs of those spacer kits, and it just comes out great. It just is so much nicer to print with than PETG. So if you're into 3D printing, I highly recommend you try out ASA. It is a lesser known of the common 3D printing desktop materials, but it's a winner for sure from my book, and I am a full-time engineer in the additive manufacturing 3D printing world, so I see a lot of different polymers, and ASA is one of the best bang for your buck polymers, especially for just desktop level printers that don't have a ton of features like heated enclosures and things like that. So if you guys are watching this and you're a C5 Corvette owner, or a C6 or C7 or even C8, you know, or just any kind of enthusiast car, I am looking to start building and designing more 3D printed products to help support the aftermarket community for these aging cars. The C5 Corvette is a 20-plus-year-old car now, so there's definitely certain things in and around the car that could be easily solved with 3D printing that you might not find as easy from bigger aftermarket part manufacturers. But the C5 Corvette being 20 years old, I think it's a really interesting point in time to help support the platform with a technology like 3D printing that doesn't have a huge startup cost. I'm not paying for expensive injection molds or tooling. I'm able to print one-off, high-mix, low-volume parts on my printers here at home with relatively robust plastics that will hold up to the element for the automotive kind of style of application. Now, we won't be printing any structural parts for the car, obviously, out of this polymer here, but there's definitely a fair amount of things around the car that I have ideas for. But please, if you have ideas for the C5, C6, C7, C8, any kind of enthusiast car, please leave a comment or message me. I'd be really curious to see what your thoughts are and ideas are, and maybe work with some of you guys on designing a new part and then seeing how it fits to your car if it's not the C5 that I can just fit to my car here in the garage. Thanks for tuning in, guys, to this video. I just wanted to quickly share that update with you and kind of my intentions moving forward here. I've got a lot of videos in the pipeline to film about my C5 Corvette, about 3D printing to come, so I'm hoping for a lot of action in 2024. Definitely don't have as much ample free time as I used to, but I'm staying up late into the night here to film some of these videos when everything else is quiet inside the house. So that's kind of my plan, is for 2024 to really mix the passion of automotive and 3D printing in one here on the channel. So if you guys haven't already, I kindly ask that you subscribe to the channel to kind of help support and stay tuned to all the future videos to come for this year. If you have any comments or questions about anything I discussed in this video, any products, you know, other ideas, things about other videos, please feel free to leave a comment. I usually see the comments from my most recent videos the easiest, so please feel free to leave comments or thoughts based on everything that I've discussed here today. And other than that, guys, thanks so much for watching, thanks for supporting the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.